what your options as far as funding are when studying in the US. And a main focus of this is going to be also how to strengthen your application for an MBA in the US, because typically most scholarships and funding opportunities are going to be merit-based. So you want to have as strong of an application as possible. So let me just share my screen here. 1 second. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see this all right. All right, so as I mentioned, the types of awards and funding that are typically going to be offered through an MBA program in the United States are going to be cash awards. So what we're referring to as scholarships. And again, most of these are going to be merit-based. It depends on the program, how much they typically give. At Michigan State University, we can give anywhere from $5,000 per year to a full ride scholarship. So again, it's all going to be based on how strong the application is. We also, or some programs will also offer non-resident tuition waivers. So this means that as part of your package or part of your offer, you may be given in-state tuition rather than an out-of-state rate or international student rate. So this can save our program. I can only speak to our program, but that saves you about $20,000 per year having that waiver alone. So that's a great opportunity as well. The other very popular option for funding is a graduate assistantship. And that will typically give you, again, 10 hours per week of work, so quarter time. And in that you will receive a stipend. And that will typically be for 9 months because that will be during the school year, right? And then during your MBA program in the US, you'll usually be doing an internship at a different company in the summer. So that should cover you as far as, receiving money in the summer. And then at MSU, you get 9 credits paid for the graduate tuition rate, which equals approximately $15,000. You get health insurance, and then again, the stipend, which is every other week. Again, varies by program, the amount that you'll get, the frequency that you get paid, do you get health insurance, right? So it will vary by program, but the point being, graduate assistantships are great ways to save money on tuition and then, have a stipend and work and get some more work experience while in your program. So then there are also fellowships. Typically, you'll see a lot of Forte fellowships in US MBA programs. Now, Forte is an organization that exists to further women in business. That is their goal, and that is open typically to both men and women. So if you are a man and you're interested in working towards helping to further women in business during your time in the program, that's wonderful. But then again, many women are given Forte fellowships as well. And then Ramba is for the LGBTQ plus community and allies as well. And then again, based on whatever school you're applying to, there may be other partnerships and fellowships available. And then you can also get a combination of the awards above. So you may get $10,000 a year in scholarship, plus a graduate assistantship and a non-resident tuition waiver. So there's different ways that we go about that. But again, having a strong application is what's going to give you the best opportunities as far as this funding goes. I will say that in some programs, you may have to do a separate application if you are interested in one of these opportunities. At Michigan State, we do not require a separate application. For us, it is you're automatically considered if you're admitted. And there are places in the application to show that you're interested maybe in a Ramba fellowship or Forte fellowship, et cetera. So again, this may vary by school. So make sure that based off of the school you're applying to, you find out what their processes are as far as applying for these different opportunities. So what do we care about as admissions officers while we're looking at your application, deciding what makes you a strong applicant and not? Unfortunately, it's not an easy answer. The answer is everything. It's very holistic. We're looking at so many different things about an applicant, some that may be more obvious than others, such as, transcripts and GMAT score and resume. But there's a lot of soft skills that we'll be looking for, different experiences that make you unique and diverse. So this chart here is going to kind of show the three main buckets. So academic potential, obviously that's going to be looking at your transcript, GRE or GMAT score, TOEFL, or other English proficiency score, as well as your essays, and then we'll gauge it a bit from your interview as well. As you can see, the interview will kind of we'll be looking at everything within the interview, your career history and goals, characteristics. I'd say looking at your soft skills in the interview and communication skills is going to be the most important piece there. But as far as career history and goals go, then we'll look at your essays for that, your resume, look at your references, and then make sure that you're a good fit for the program, right? So that's why it says here functional area of choice. So is your background and are your reasons for wanting to do an MBA a good fit for our program? And it's fine if you don't even come from a business background. That's not the concern. Full-time MBAs are a wonderful place to do a career transition, career shift, transformation, but just make sure that you're clear when you're telling us why you've come to this point in your life where you've decided an MBA is the right step for you, and why have you been inspired to maybe shift your career in a certain direction. So just making sure that you're clear about that in your application is going to be really, really important. And then as far as personal characteristics go, again, we'll look at your references, but I think this is going to be huge as far as your interview goes, is really letting your personality shine and come through. And then also we'll look at leadership and teamwork. Usually throughout your resume is a great place, or an essay where you can show that. So any leadership opportunities you've taken on, managing a team, leading a resource group at work, doing volunteer work, whatever it may be. Even team sports, that's a great way. And then the military is a very easy way to, that comes with a lot of great soft skills. So if you've got military experience, highlighting the teamwork skills you've gained there, the leadership skills, etc. So again, for schools with merit-based awards, remember that the stronger the application, the more funding you will receive. So when you are, filling out your application, you need to be able and prepared to explain your interest in pursuing an MBA, which is what I have just mentioned, on the last slide. So how can you do this and where can you show this? So again, your written and video essays, as well as your evaluative interview with the admissions officer. Sometimes your interview also could be with a member of a different team. So maybe someone from the career management team. A lot of schools even have their alumni conduct the interviews, maybe even graduate assistants. So be prepared to connect with a variety of people. It might not always be someone from the admissions team. And then how do you perfect, kind of your pitch as far as this goes? So make sure you're doing your research on the MBA program, and then also make sure you're going to highlight what industry and maybe companies of interest you would like to go into post MBA. And does this MBA program align with that industry? Do grads typically go into those industries or those companies? Is there a concentration within that MBA program that fits with your interests? So making sure that's a good fit, and then highlighting that fit is going to be really important. Spend the time drafting and rehearsing your experience and your story. Be ready to tell it in your interview, and make sure that it's detailed yet concise, if that makes sense. So make sure you're highlighting the right details. Don't take up too much time kind of going on and about yourself. Make sure that you've got that elevator pitch perfected, and make sure you're answering the questions in your interview that are being asked of you, and stay on track. So as far as the resume goes, how do we perfect our resume and get it ready for an MBA application in the US? Because again, resumes and CVs, the expectations are different all over the world, right? So in the US, it will be important for you to inventory your success stories. Make sure you're following a one-page format for resume. I know a lot of people have issues with this, a lot. And some MBA programs may be more strict about this than others. But we at MSU, we ask for a one page. If it has to go like a page and a half, fine. But anything more than that, I promise you, the admissions officer does not have time to read that. So that is why you want to get it on one page. It's for your own sake, right? So that you're making sure that you're getting the right information in front of the admissions officer, who really probably only has a couple seconds initially to go over your resume when choosing who goes on to the next round or the next step or gets into an interview or not. So make sure to try and highlight the most important things on one page. So how can you have the wow factor on your resume? Quantifying your accomplishments. So using data, numbers to talk about what you've done and what you've achieved is wonderful. Showing those results and using a variety of action verbs. So, making sure that you're not using the same language over and over. So making it a little bit more interesting and standing out. So then you could kind of focus the resume to your post-MBA functional area if you want. Try and tailor it that way to make it obvious how it will fit. That's optional and really depends on what that goal is. Making sure the format is correct. You can look up what typically the US format standards are going to be. We never include photos. And then really typically at the top, it's just kind of your name, an email, maybe address if you want, and then highlighting typically education at the top, and then work history, and then at the bottom maybe any hobbies or interests that you have. But making sure you're checking for spelling and grammar. Always, you don't want to have those errors on there. Save it as a PDF. Don't submit it as a doc. Typically, everyone will expect you to submit as a PDF, and then following the naming guidelines for the resume, if there are any on the application. We don't have any for Michigan State, but sometimes they may want your last name plus, I don't know, resume plus the date, or whatever they may or may not have. So next, preparing for your evaluative interview. This is very important. Not everybody is going to get to an interview stage. I can pretty much guarantee most schools do that the same way, because there would not be time to interview hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of applicants, right? So you want to make sure that you get to that evaluative interview stage, following the instructions I gave you or the tips I gave you in the first couple of slides. Now, how do you actually stand out in that interview? So again, practice that value pitch, or your pitch and elevator pitch and value proposition, so that you're ready to go. Your introduction, introducing yourself, kind of hitting the main points, most important things about yourself, and maybe your interest in the program and reasons for your interest in that specific MBA program. Practice behavioral questions as well. Typically, in MBA interviews are going to be mostly behavioral questions, because again, we're trying to gauge your soft skills and your personality in this interview. We already know your resume. We've already got that. So we're not going to want to go through your work history so much. It's more about getting to know you. How do you handle problems and issues, overcome, challenges, etc. Take us through your journey from start to finish. So if you can kind of give me a linear story, what have you been doing so far in your career? How does that relate now to an MBA, and how will you apply that to the program, the skills that you've gained? What do you hope to gain from the MBA program? And then how do you plan to combine that prior experience plus the skills from an MBA towards this post-MBA career? And what does that career look like to you, hopefully? So next, again, interpersonal skills matter. So we're really looking for people who have great communication skills. Try to be yourself as much as possible. I know that it's hard. People get nervous in interviews, but typically, again, we just want to get to know who you are as a person and make sure that you're a good fit personality-wise too for the MBA program. So again, talk to your experience and your skills, and don't say just what you think we want to hear, because we want to get to know you. And then I suggest wearing business formal attire, whether you're doing your interview in person or online. So again, talking about behavioral questions. So making sure that you know the types of questions and have a strategy for responding. So typically you'll have situational questions, competency-based questions, and behavioral questions. You can see here a few examples of what those questions may look like and why do we ask them. So again, a situational question to find out, what your approach to a certain scenario may be and how do you handle that. Competency-based will be to test your professional attributes. And again, behavioral will be looking at your to assess your approach to different situations as well. So make sure that you're using also the STAR method. If you're not familiar with that, I will go into detail on what the STAR method is. But when you're answering questions in an interview for MBA programs, using the STAR method is a really great way for you to show the interviewer that you're prepared, and it's a great way to keep yourself on track too, as far as not going off on a tangent or a long story. It kind of keeps you on track too and getting to the point. So the STAR method, as you may know, is situation, task, action, and result. So, first, when someone asks you a question, explain the situation that you were faced with. And then, what was the task at hand? What did you do then? So the action, and then what was that result? So if you can take us through that story in the STAR method way, it's really a great way for you to answer your questions, sound professional, sound prepared, and again, keep you on track. So before the interview too, I suggest that you stay informed and show what you know about the MBA program. Maybe your interviewer, if you know who your interviewer is before the interview, you may not know their name, but if you want, you can even look them up on LinkedIn, kind of see what their background is, maybe even prepare a question that's more personalized to them for the end of the interview, and then research the program. So pay particular attention to maybe their recent news, blogs, and social media channels to see what has been going on recently in the program so that you can tailor questions to that. Because again, we'll always give you time for questions at the end for us. And if you can ask questions that are, about things that are pretty recent in the program, showing that you've, really been doing your research is a great way to stand out. And again, prepping questions that are specific to the MBA program that you are applying to. So again, here is my email address. If you do have any other questions, feel free to follow up, and I will be back with some more information about the Michigan State program in a little bit.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kate, for that. Several questions in the Q&A already, and I want to just take a moment to inform everybody who's attending today. Please feel free to keep posting your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. What will happen now is there are some very common questions that many of you have asked around funding. So I'm going to try and ask Kate some of those to get a broader perspective. Then we'll have Kate present briefly about Michigan State University and help you understand a bit about what program, what requirements does MSU have. And then we'll take some more questions from the audience Q&A as well. So don't worry if your question is not already answered when I ask the initial set of questions. We have more time towards the latter half of the session where we'll continue to take questions as well. Right. So without further ado, Kate, I'll bring you the first one. Now, you spoke about various aspects of the application journey. Tell us, in your opinion, if you had to choose the two most important aspects, and I appreciate it's a holistic journey and a process as well, but if you had to pick two things that probably make a student stand out and that's something that they should focus most on, what would those two things be?
Yeah, so I think that I want to say the obvious two are going to be your work experience, and then if you have a test score, your test score. Those are kind of the big two, right? So, having for the work experience, having real world experience out in the workforce really allows you to better understand the content of an MBA program, as well as contributing to, class discussions and projects. And then, the test score, that's always going to be a thing in the MBA space in the US. It's important for us to gauge your skills. But I want to just add one extra thing. I know those are two, but I would say that if you can demonstrate your potential contributions to the program and your fellow students, that really is something I love to see on an application. So telling what you hope to share, what's unique about you that you can share with the rest of the class and that they could possibly learn from you about, right? Because that's the wonderful piece about having a diverse class, is learning from each other as well, not just the professors. So I think that's something really nice to highlight on your application.
Fantastic. Now, one of the things for students that have, just about 2 odd years of experience, one of the things that they have found difficult in their time coming through is normally balancing, the academic and the extracurricular or internships alongside. what are your thoughts, and maybe what insights would you have for students that are trying to showcase both sides of their personality effectively, the academic and their extracurricular work experience? How does one, put together that well-rounded profile? Is there something that they should particularly keep in mind?
I would say that as far as highlighting your extracurricular activities and your interests as well, I personally love to see that at the bottom of a resume. Again, as I mentioned, typically it will be, education at the top, then work experience, and then the bottom is a really great area of the resume to kind of highlight those extracurricular activities and show us who you are as a person, as an applicant. There is a space in our application as well to put extracurriculars and any other activities that you want to add. But the reason that I love that is in an interview, I typically will always bring that up, something from that area. So I find that really gets people out of their shell when you talk about something that someone's passionate about. Bringing that up in an application, an interview, really makes people kind of light up, and they're excited to talk about, what they're passionate about. So if you do include that on your resume, or if you can, please do, because I think it's a great insight into who you are as a person. We love to see where your interests lie outside of just work, right, or education. So that can be too, just to give you some tips. That could be volunteer work that you do. It could be, again, even leading maybe a resource group or a club at your work or in your university. It could be a sports team that you're part of. And then I have people just honestly put hobbies. I love traveling. I love playing cricket. Whatever it may be. Definitely include that on your resume, because it shows us a good insight into who you are.
Yeah, and one thing, if I can add, at business school, a lot of times we talk about leadership potential. So if you've taken up any extracurricular activities where you've held a leadership role, combine that in your story of how it made you realize what you want to do in the bigger purpose of, in your career after an MBA as well. So those are some key ideas that you can look at. Kate, next question, and the Q&A chat box is actually imploding as well. So I'll try and take some from there shortly too. But another question, when it comes to letter of recommendation, and this becomes a slightly sensitive one many a times, because it is difficult for people who are currently working to go to their immediate supervisor to go and ask for a letter of recommendation. How do you suggest that one chooses the right recommender, and what's the process that you'd recommend to have that first conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would never expect somebody to have their current supervisor write their letter of recommendation, because that is many times a very uncomfortable conversation. It could put your current job at risk. Many reasons why we as admissions officers completely understand why that may not be able to happen, right? So professional references are always preferred, though, over academic or personal references. So if you can get any type of professional reference, that's going to be key. So if you're not comfortable approaching your current supervisor for the letter, they may not know that you plan to leave. And as mentioned, it could even put your job at risk. It's uncomfortable, whatever it may be. Using a past supervisor is absolutely fine. If you can try and find people who you've worked with that can speak to your personal traits and professional skills. It could be just a coworker. It could be even, I've had people use clients that they've worked with that could work closely with them, and they could speak to their skill sets and personalities. Just make sure that you let them know you're using them as a reference. Not every school is going to require an actual letter too, which I think makes it a lot easier for that person. So for Michigan State, for example, all you need to do is give us their name and contact information, and we just send them a form. So it automatically sends them a form to fill out. And I know other schools may do this as well. And I feel like that's a lot easier of a ask too. So just, let them know, say, hey, I'm applying for MBA programs. I would love to use you as a reference. Please, if that's okay, if they say yes, and then just tell them, be on the lookout for this email and just fill out this quick form for me. And so I think when it's that too, it's a very easy ask too. So yes, please don't feel like you need to use your current supervisor.
Yeah, and I think this also adds up for some of you that have asked about references around family businesses. I think Kate's highlighted that using clients, using suppliers, maybe great examples of folks that you can go to when you want to think about who that ideal person to recommend would be. Kate, next question. At business school, we talk a lot about diversity, be it background, be it experience. Now, in countries where there is a lot of competition, be it India, Ghana, Nigeria, where we have students from today, how can candidates, authentically showcase their unique backgrounds? And it may be smaller things, but any perspectives of how to stand out from the crowd in a point when diversity becomes a lot more about stereotypes as well?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So what comes to mind is, I would say that diversity comes in many forms. So it's not just race, it's not just gender, it's not just, what country you're from. We're going to be looking at your unique life experiences, professional backgrounds, and then the different paths that you've taken to get to where you are today. So everyone is going to be kind of at this same point applying for an MBA program, right? So if you can highlight the unique experiences that you've faced throughout your life to inspire you to want to get your MBA, lead others, study abroad in a new country, whatever it may be. I find that many times that these stories and motivations are really inspirational and give me a really good insight into what makes this applicant unique and diverse. So tell us your story. Everyone's story is unique. And so as much as you can do that, I think that is what's going to help you stand out as a diverse candidate with a diverse story. And, a lot of times too, even just, I mean, to be honest, I interview tons of people from all over the world, and just the stories from other countries, right? People go through such different journeys than we do here in the US. So we love to hear about, how you've gone through your educational journey. People tell stories about their families, what has inspired them maybe to help their community. A lot of people, want an MBA to come back and start some type of initiative, maybe in their own country. Those stories are what really help you stand out to us as well, to get to know your passions and interests and motivations.
That's a great answer. And if I can just add to that, I think, for folks that worry too much about what diversity means to business school, Kate's highlighted exactly that. Your experience is unique to everybody else who's here. So try and be authentic in your storyline. Don't try and say something because the school may like it. That probably, when it comes back, if you do that in the essay and then you're quizzed in the interview, somewhere the schools read through the cracks. They read thousands of applications. So there is no right answer. There is your answer. So try and think of it from that lens moreover as well. Now, there's over 55 questions that have come on the Q&A box. So I'm going to try and take a few. I know there are some questions which are relating to the MSU MBA program. So for folks that have asked that, hang on. In just under 5 minutes, Kate's going to talk about everything MSU. So most of that will get covered there. And then we'll come back with more questions around applications and certain backgrounds and experiences qualifying for the MBA program or not. I'm going to take two quick questions. Kate, one that has come across in by a few people in different ways. If they come from a non-traditional or non-business background, how from especially when thinking about scholarships and funding, are they how likely are they to receive funding, or what are what kind of chances do they stand?
I would say that they're just as likely to receive funding as somebody with a business background. As I mentioned at some point in the presentation, that a full-time MBA is really for transforming your career. So typically we'll see people from so many different backgrounds. I can give you, again, MSU focus, but only about 25% of our 25 to 30% typically, depending on the year, come from a business background. So we, again, want as diverse of a class as possible. And that also means industry background, educational background, and then post-MBA goals as well. So, an MBA program, a full-time MBA, is a great place for you to come in with whatever career you have and transform yourself and go into something maybe even completely different, right? It might just be a small shift, totally depends on the person. Now, again, the way to do that right is to tell your story and your journey and lay that out for the admissions officer as clear as possible. So tell us, how are you going to do this? How do you plan to utilize the MBA, and what do you want to gain from the MBA? And make sure you highlight what does the MBA program you're applying to offer that will help you to do that. And how will you apply those learnings and your experiences to get to this post-MBA goal, and what inspired you to get there? That's a huge thing. If somebody's like, I'm a geologist and I want to go into supply chain management. Okay, great. But why? Like, where did this come from? Where did this passion and this realization come from? So as long as you could explain that story clearly, you're fine. You're great. And I think that, again, having as diverse of a background as possible, industry background, that, let's say, is actually maybe gonna help you in a way, because it's diverse, it's different. I can tell you right now in our current class, we have, I use a geologist as an example because we do have a geologist. We have a lot of engineers, musicians, artists, teachers, medical backgrounds. I mean, so really, it's not something you should worry about, truly. So just to put you at ease.
Great. And I'll put one more question, Kate, before I let you present about the program. There have been over 12 people who've asked about the assistantships that you spoke about. So 2 parts of the question. One, are international students eligible to apply for assistantships? And then second, what is the process and when is the right time to apply?
So yes, international students are eligible. Definitely. Again, it depends on the program, so I cannot speak to the processes of everybody else. The eligibility, as far as I know, I think at any school, international students are eligible to be graduate assistants. And that being said, I would assume this is the same for any campus in the US, because this is an immigration law, right? So our international students are able to legally take on any employment during their time in the US, as long as they are working through the university. So that would be a graduate assistantship. But also, even, we have people that get jobs in the dining halls or the residence halls, or I don't even know. There's a lot of different on-campus employment at Michigan State. So as long as you're working through the university, actually you're able to work during your time in the MBA. So it's a great way to fund, your time in the US and get some extra money. And sometimes people will secure graduate assistantships outside of the MBA program, which is honestly, not gonna lie, a really great way to do it. So if you can get a scholarship through the program and not a graduate assistantship, so take the scholarship piece, take that money, and then once you're on campus, look for another graduate assistantship through a different department, college, maybe directly with a professor, then you can have the scholarship plus the graduate assistantship. And really, that's a great way to fund. So it's a kind of an inside secret, but it's a great opportunity as well. So that's the international. What was the other piece of that question?
Just the time. When is the right time to apply for these assistantships?
Well, I would say, and again, it depends on each school's application processes, but I would say, generally speaking, all international students do not apply any later than a school's round 2 for anything at all. So don't apply in round 3 or 4. It's too late. There's not that much funding left. There's not that many spaces left in the class. So again, the earlier you apply, the better. So I would say, if there's a school you have your heart set on, apply in an early round, so you can, be one of the first. And if you get your answer as a yes, then you're good to go, right? Early on. After that, I'd say round 1. Round 1 is a great round. I think it's maybe my favorite. I always tell international students, it's a really good time to apply because it's not too early on. So you still can apply to a couple different schools, wait to hear back from them. But it's not the biggest round. So round 2 is usually everyone's biggest round. So there's much more competition there. So applying in round 1 is really a sweet spot. So I would say early round or round 1, if you want to really get on the graduate assistant opportunity list.
Yeah, and I definitely encourage everyone looking to go to business school and considering MSU, apply in round 1 here or other schools as well, because this is the time when the largest amount of scholarships money is also available most times. And if I can add here, At Seed, we also have a scholarships program. So go on to seedglobaleducation.com. Check out the scholarships. If you're planning to apply to MSU or any of our partner schools, you are eligible to apply to Seed scholarships as well. But with that, Kate, several more questions coming. I want to turn to you to just tell us a little bit more about the MBA program and how is it to study at Broad as well. And then we'll come back and take more questions.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, hopefully I can answer most of the questions coming through that are program specific in this presentation about Michigan State. Let me get this started here. Okay. Okay, hopefully it's working. I'm going to assume that if it's not, you'll let me know. So I'm going to just give a quick highlight here about Michigan State as a whole. So Michigan State is a very large university. We typically have over 50,000 students. This was from fall 2022. I know we've grown our numbers even more this year. We have over 600,000 alumni worldwide. I guarantee anywhere you go, you are sure to find a Michigan State alum. I've lived in different countries and I've had people, if I wear a Michigan State shirt or hat, in Spain, I lived in Madrid, I'd have people yelling from the other side of the street. We always say, go green to each other. So they're everywhere. They're in companies. It's a great alumni network to be a part of. So currently we have about 122 current full-time MBA students. So that is between the 2 years. And then as far as Broad College of Business goes, we have over 80,000 alumni worldwide. So again, great network to build your community and to build your future. So we talk about building your future at Broad. So what does that mean? You'll build your career, you'll build your network, you'll build your foundation and your expertise as well. So this is the class of 2024 profile. So this would be our second year MBAs right now. There are 66 currently enrolled students. We do have 3 different joint degrees. That won't be really relevant for international students, so you can disregard that piece. So our average GMAT is about a 660 with about 4 years of work experience. And on average, the GPA is about a 3.5, and we have a very diverse class. Just the US students alone, domestic students, 44% of them are students of color. This class is a little lighter on domestic international. So that class is 25% international. And I know our current class is closer to 30%. So when I say current, I'm sorry, I mean our incoming first year class that just started last week. And then our ratio in this class is 35% female, the rest male. And then this incoming class, we have over 40% female. So growing the female numbers quite a bit. And then this is a snapshot of our curriculum. So the 2 years are 61 credits, more or less. Sometimes it goes to 62 credits. 31 of those credits are core credits, and those are done in your first year. So no matter what your concentration is, what your goals are, what your background is, you are all going to do the same courses in your first year. So those are what we call your business foundation courses. So you will touch on every aspect of business. You will do marketing, you'll do supply chain, you'll do finance, you'll do leadership classes, even communication styles, everything. So you'll get a really great foundation that first year. And then from there, in your second year is when you choose your concentrations. So you are able to choose between now 6 concentrations. It's official as of this week. I'm sorry, I did not update my presentation in time, but it's finance, human resource management, marketing, supply chain management, business analytics, and then now actually we also have entrepreneurship as a concentration. We are known best for supply chain management. We are the #1 supply chain program in the US. I believe #2 worldwide. It depends on which rankings you're looking at. And then I will say, this might break some of your hearts depending on which of these concentrations is most of interest to you. But we do have a STEM MBA certified track. So we just this year were able to secure the STEM MBA certificate or designation. And we're so excited because I'm sure you all know what that means for international students. But you can only choose between 3 concentrations for the STEM designation. So that is finance, marketing, and supply chain management. So you can choose, again, 1 or 2 concentrations during your time in the program. And then whatever credits are left over after the concentrations are done, you go to your elective courses. And these are some of the typical elective tracks that we'll see people go into. So consulting, entrepreneurship, business analytics, global business is actually a 4-credit study abroad opportunity that you can do in your first or second. And now we are actually allowing you to do it in both your first and second years. So you could even do it twice if you wanted, and go to different countries. So we are very big on giving you hands-on expertise, hands-on opportunities to learn. So experiential learning is huge. We have Extreme Green, which is a special workshop that you do once in. So you do 1 in your first year, 1 in your second year. Typically, it will be a company coming, presenting you with a problem that they are currently facing, and you have to come up with a solution to that problem over a couple of days and then present it to that company. So really gives you a really good opportunity to get some hands-on learning, put the skills you're learning during the program into practice, and then again present that to the company. So also there's a team leadership lab in the Minskoff Pavilion, which is where the business college is. The team leadership lab is a room that a special room or laboratory that was specifically designed with our MBAs in mind. And there are small rooms within the laboratory, each one equipped with a camera where the professor is watching, and people are broken into groups and given a challenge that they have to solve. And then again, the professor is going to be giving you critiques and advice and learnings from what he's observing in the different labs. So it's a really cool opportunity. People love doing that. We have different treks to different companies. Again, I mentioned the global immersion, which is the study abroad. There's an executive speaker series that is built into your curriculum. So on Fridays, I believe I don't think it's every week. It might be, I think it's once a month. We have an executive speaker come in to speak with our students. And then of course, the internship experience that you will be recruiting for. The thing that makes our community really special is, as I mentioned, it's a huge university, huge, but we have small class sizes. So the MBA program is typically about 65 people. And so you're getting that small, tight-knit community, and the professors will know you by name. You'll know all of your cohort, create this really kind of almost like a family over these 2 years. But then you get the amenities and the opportunities of being at a huge university. So you get the cultural events, you get the sports culture. So the famous United States, like what you would see in movies, the football games, the tailgating, the basketball, all of that, which is a ton of fun. And then we have a planetarium, we have agricultural farms. You can go visit animals that we have on the farms. We have music festivals, folk festivals, art festivals. So there's so much that goes on at the university. It's a ton of fun. So these are our 16 student resource groups. So they're focused more on there's community building, there's DEI resource groups, as well as professional focused resource groups. So professional development. Some pictures of our community, of our students. Okay, so this is a huge piece of the program, is going to be recruiting for both your internship and then full-time job after. So we do have a career management team at the Russell Palmer Career Management Center within the Broad College of Business. So you will be given a career coach, a professional career coach from the center during your time in the program. You'll also be given alumni connections with a network of over 80,000 Broad alumni. And then you'll also be paired with a peer mentor. So this will be a second-year student who's mentoring a first-year student. So that will typically be focused on your internship recruiting. So we bring tons of different companies on campus to recruit. We've got a lot of employer connections already. And then again, the alumni within all of these different companies that we will connect you with as well. So for 2022, so we still don't have the final career data for this graduating class of 2023. So 2022, 94% of grads were employed within 3 months of graduation. Average starting salary was about $120,000 per year. and the average signing bonus was 31,000. And then I do want to just point out our main areas of, for recruiting. Consulting is huge, supply chain management is huge, consumer goods, tech. We are actually we have the second most alumni in the tech industry of any other MBA program in the US, which you'd be surprised because we're Michigan over in the Midwest. We're not out on the West Coast, but we have a lot of alums in the tech industry. Okay, so here are application deadlines. I know we talked about rounds earlier. Our first early round deadline is coming up on October 2nd. And then from there, you can see our other ones. Again, I highly recommend you apply with any of their early round 1 or round 2 as an international student. And then a quick overview of our tuition. I know we've definitely talked about funding and whatnot, but our in-state tuition is currently about $35,000 per year. Out of state / international is about $55,000 per year. Many times we give our international students in-state tuition as part of their package, which I had mentioned earlier. But our scholarships can range anywhere between $4,000 or $5,000 to a full ride. We give the in-state tuition waivers, graduate assistantships, as mentioned, and usually on average, I would even venture to say over 80% of our students receive awards. So this is our current team. So Kara and I are filling in on the interim, so you can feel free to reach out to either of us about any questions as far as admissions go. Beth Thomas, she processes all of our applications. So if you have an application process and have questions about the application itself or documentation, whatnot, Beth is going to be the person for you to reach out to. But this is our team. We are very small but mighty, and we hope to connect with you in the near future.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that, Kate. And for everyone listening in, I hope a lot of the aspects that were spoken about with regards to funding, or also how to make our application stand out, were quite useful. Learning about Broad as well. Now I want to go back to some questions that were there from the audience Q&A, and for folks that are still putting questions, please keep doing so. We'll try and take as many as we can over the next 10 to 15 minutes. Kate, one question in different forms that have come up, and I'll probably take 5 of them together. It's around testing. Is the GMAT GRE compulsory / can someone take an EA / are you offering waivers?
Yes, and yes, and yes. Okay, so we accept GMAT for standardized tests. We accept GMAT, GRE, and the executive assessment. So those are all options to strengthen your application. Okay, so I will also say that they are not mandatory. We offer waivers to anybody who wants it. So essentially, it is up to you if you want to include a test score or not on your application. I always highly recommend that people do take the test because, again, as we looked at this on the presentation, the stronger your application, the more funding you'll get. And it also betters your chances of even moving to the next stages of, interviews, of standing out among other applicants. Because let's imagine that we have 3 applicants who have really similar career trajectories, goals, they're all from the same country. On paper, they kind of are very similar, right? And I hate to say that because, of course, you're all individual people, but when we're glancing at application, we have to make these choices. So if one of those 3 people has the test score, we're taking that one. So I think it's really important. Yes, we have the waiver, but it's so important to just take the time to prepare to do that if you want to set your best foot forward. And again, give yourself the best opportunities for funding. I will say I think it was about 30% of our class does have a GMAT or GRE test score. No, actually, I'm sorry. I think that's just GMAT. It's alone. We count GMAT. So, it's still possible. I don't want to say that you won't get in, you won't get an interview, you won't get even a scholarship if you don't have a test score, but it's really helpful in strengthening your application. So that's what I will say. I think that answered all of them.
Yeah, staying on the testing bit, TOEFL, IELTS, is there any preference? There's some questions around that too.
Yeah, no preference. If you go to our website, you can look at I believe it's under admissions tab and then an international criteria. All of our minimum scores are there for the many different English proficiency tests. So we take IELTS, TOEFL, even Duolingo we accept as well. And so the good news is for probably most people on this call, India, Nigeria, Ghana, anywhere. So if you've done your bachelor's degree in English, you do not need an English proficiency score at Michigan State. So what we will ask is basically proof that you've studied in English. So a lot of times that will be on your transcript, if not just a letter from your university saying that your medium of instruction was English, I think is what they typically will say. So then you don't even have to worry about that test.
Fantastic. There's a question around a career gap, and I'll probably mix two questions up here together. One, is 2 years a mandatory? If someone with 1 year of experience, are they still eligible to apply? And second, which is slightly different but somewhat connected, is a career gap. If someone does decide to take a career gap and then wants to come back into an MBA, is that seen negatively at all?
Okay, so first, I would say for the career gap, it's really, again, going to all come down to telling your story. So having a valid and great reason for, and I'm sure you all do, everyone has their reasons, right? So making it clear, why did you choose to take a career gap, or why did you maybe have to? So some people have like a medical issue, or they have to take care of a family member, or there's so many reasons. So as long as you can explain that and tell us your story again, and then tell us now why an MBA is the right next move for you, that's fine. But just make sure that you're not, I would not turn in a resume where there's a career gap and not explain it. That would be what I wouldn't do. So as long as you can explain that, I think that's fine. Okay. I'm sorry, what was the other piece of the question?
Second was around work experience. Actually, our Now Club 2 bits together, is less than 2 okay, or is more than 6 okay as well?
Okay, so more than 6 is definitely okay. I'm not worried about that at all. Less than 2 is tough. I would really say if you do have less than 2, highlight if you had any relevant internships during your time in school even. And then absolutely 1,000% take a test, because you're going to need something to balance out that low work experience. Personally, I would wait another year to help your chances of admission. But also, again, as I mentioned, having that work experience within the program is going to be beneficial to you, because you have more real life experiences to relate to, more to draw from, more to contribute to the class. So it's also for your benefit too. So that's what I'll say, but I'm not concerned about more than 6. There was another question you had asked even before that. I can't remember. I feel like there was another piece of this, but
no, I think I covered that. Yeah, I covered both less than 2 and over 2 years.
Okay.
Of experience. I think that does it. There's a question where a student's saying that they have pursued another postgraduate degree, and I know some schools are averse to this, so this is probably more broad specific. Mm-hmm. If somebody has pursued an MBA in their home country right after graduation, or maybe with a year of experience, and for whatever reason they scored an average grade on that, but now they've had a few years of experience and want to go into an MBA, is the fact that they've done an MBA or a postgraduate degree already, is that a negative in any form? And second, is the score that they got on that, does that impact their potential to enroll into an MBA program abroad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are not, this depends on the school. Michigan State, we are not able to admit anyone who already has an MBA, specifically an MBA. So if you already have an MBA, you can't come back to Michigan State and do another MBA. Any other post-grad, that's fine, doesn't matter. Now, as far as the score on that goes, yeah, absolutely. That's a part of your story, and I hopefully, if it's a low score, I mean, it is insight to us into who you are as a student, and we'll ask for the transcripts, and so if it is a low score, be prepared to talk about why it's low. So Did you have a personal problem that maybe came up during your time in your studies? Did you really have maybe at a specific class that was just what brought down your grades? I mean, I don't know, but if it's negative, if it's not a good thing that you want to highlight, as far as the grades go, explain why. You can be ready to tell why.
Yeah, and I just want to take a second to mention to folks that are coming from India in particular here, if you've done a PGDM, which is most times in India considered equivalent to an MBA, but it is not an MBA according to US qualifications. If you've done that or any specialized master's degree, you are eligible to apply to Broad at least, and speak to every school because different schools may have different criteria as such. But just wanted to clarify around the PGDM versus the MBA discussion as well. Kate,
and I want to add really quick too, if there is a question in your mind of whether or not, because to be honest with you, I don't remember the exact reason why we do not admit people that already have an MBA. It's something through our Office of International Students and Scholars. And so if there was a question about whether or not maybe you could, still email me and ask me, because sometimes what I'll have them do is kind of evaluate your exact degree and your transcripts or whatever it may be, and they'll come back and be like, actually this person is eligible because it doesn't meet this certain requirement. You know, it's complicated. So don't be too discouraged. You can still feel free to reach out and ask.
Okay. There are several more questions. So Kate, we'll do a little bit of rapid fire on a few of these to cover more as well. There's a question around somebody who's trying to change their career path and probably in their current mode is finding it difficult to navigate that change. Does an MBA really open up more avenues?
Yes, it does. Are we doing rapid fire? Because yes.
So take 15 seconds because I think this one's a little important.
Well, again, a full-time MBA program. So again, I would go with a full-time, not an online, not a part-time or an executive or whatever. A full-time MBA program is, I believe, truly made for transforming your career. So that is the right choice. You will be getting this whole business foundation. So again, you don't even have to have a business background. And so apart from the skills you're gaining in business in the MBA program, you're also gaining a whole alumni network, the network of your fellow students, and a career management team, typically at whatever MBA program you go to. So they're going to help you navigate that. And I would make sure that whatever program you are going to does have a career coach and career management team, because that will help you in that situation.
Fantastic. I know it's a bit cheeky, but a few people have asked about, is there an opportunity to get an application fee waiver? I thought, am I just putting
actually, yes. So I will have, I believe, the attendee list from this webinar. And what I will do is, and I'm actually glad you asked because it's not a typical process. So what I do is I will send a list of attendees to my colleague who will then apply the application fee waiver on the back end in our system. So there's no code, there's no emailing me, there's nothing. So the email address that you have, that you signed up for this webinar with, that will be attached on the back end in our system. So when you go to apply, and even if you already have an app in process with us too, it still is fine. But when you go and submit your app, essentially it will take you to the next step, which is uploading your documents instead of having you pay. So it should just skip it. It happens on the back end.
Thank
so
you.
you'll all have app fee waivers.
Thanks, Kate, for doing that. One question that there's a few people that have asked this as well. And I think this one is specific to countries that have 3-year undergraduate business degrees. Does MSU accept them for the MBA?
So technically, no, we advertise it as no, but however, we can ask for a waiver if it's an outstanding candidate. So I know for a fact there are 2 people in our MBA program right now who have a 3-year degree. So typically it's just more of a process that we have to go through and we have to get it approved. And as I mentioned, we have to send it to that Office of International Students and Scholars. And again, so it would have to be kind of a situation where we really want this person in the program. We have to go around some hoops, go through some hoops to get it done. So it is possible. It is possible Just
Brilliant.
not as typical. Yeah.
Brilliant. There's one question, and maybe after this we'll probably take a final one. But second last question here: why do you offer an early application round, and what difference does it make from an AdCom perspective? Are there any benefits in particular? And I know we've spoken a lot about that today. So if you were to highlight two of them for somebody who's considering maybe between the early application and round one, round two.
Yeah, I mean, the early round benefit, the most obvious one is that if you're applying to a school that you know you want to go to, you'll hopefully have an answer early on, right? So that you don't even have to use the rest of the year essentially to be doing applications. You can get it done, get your answer, also get your I-20 form for your visa and get your get your visa appointment early on. I know that certain countries are having some really long wait times for visas. So getting that done early on is going to be really beneficial for you and just save you a lot of headaches later on. The other reason that we have an early app round is really to gauge our most interested candidates. So again, if you've got a dream school and you know that if they are going to tell you yes, then that's it. You're done. You're not applying to other schools. You're not shopping around. So because you also are going to have to commit early on. So let's say you apply. For us, it's October 2nd. By October 2nd, we have to get back to you with an answer by November. I don't have it up right now, but mid-November. Mm-hmm. So then we will give you typically 5 or 6 weeks to get back to us with an answer, and you have to say yes or no. And if you don't, your offer's gone. So it's really for people who are prepared to give an answer early on as well. I think that's kind of the main reason.
Fantastic. So with that, Kate, thank you for taking time and talking us through the entire process. One last question before we close for today. If you had an opportunity to give one final advice to anybody who's looking at Broad and coming for the MBA program, what would that be, and specifically around scholarships, if any?
Okay. So I would say, be ready, know your story, perfect your story, be ready to show who you are in an interview and on your application. Tell us a little bit about your hobbies and interests, to give us some insight into, again, your personality and who you are. Try your best on an interview to not be too nervous. I know it's hard, but really let your personality shine through. Those are my favorite interviews. And take the GRE and GMAT. They just do it and prepare for it. It will help you, I promise.
Wonderful.
And be ready to tell us your contributions too. What do you want to contribute to our program, and what do you hope to learn, and what do you like about our university and our program? So yeah.
Fantastic.
Be ready for the experience of your life, because it's amazing. It's also a ton of fun. It's so much fun when you're here. You're going to love it. So yeah.
Great. And so I'm going to take that lead. An MBA or a program that you're going to pursue in the US is going to be life-changing. So take the time, look at this as an investment into your future, plan ahead, and hopefully today's session helps you throughout that journey. So thank you, Kate. Thank you for everybody that's joined us today. We hope we've tried to answer as many questions as we can, and we've helped you on this journey as well. So please follow us on YouTube, Instagram for more such sessions. Apart from that, have a great rest of the evening and all the best with your journey. Thank you.
Thanks.